We are going to get started in the Psalms of Ascent today, and we are beginning our journey in chapter 120 from the book of Psalms. And so the Psalms of Ascent are 15 psalms that were sung by the people of God as they went up to Jerusalem to celebrate feasts together. And we're going to begin our journey today. We're going to have some food and some games after service. And then in a couple weeks, our journey will take us outside of these walls to a park yet to be determined here in Fort Morgan, as this room needs to be used by some other people. And so we're going to journey out, and then we will finish our journey on July 19th with baptisms, celebrating baptisms after service. So if you have questions about baptism and you want to talk with me about that, please reach out after service or during the week. Now, most scholars agree that the people went on these journeys to celebrate feasts, holy feasts in Jerusalem together. And in our modern context, and in much of its historical context, Jerusalem has been filled with conflict and a lot of just oppression and all sorts of things. But I don't know that people would think of it as what the name actually means, which is City of Peace. And so they would be leaving their places, going up together to the City of Peace. And most recently, as we finished Ephesians, we talked about peace being both the absence of hostility and the presence of flourishing through mutual self-giving love and service. As we think about peace and what it means, that's where we begin in Psalm 120. Every journey has a starting point. And for the songwriter of Psalm 120, it begins as far away from peace as you can imagine. And he says, "In my distress, I cry to the Lord." I want us to imagine a time in your life that you were in distress. Just for a minute, I know it's not pleasant, but think of a time that you were in distress. What were the internal and external forces that led to that? What did it feel like in your body? What did it feel like in your mind? How were you thinking about God at the time? In her book, A Field Guide to Getting Lost, Rebecca Sonlet shares a story about a region of the Rocky Mountains where hunters get lost because they leave the path to go searching after their game or their prey, and they get lost in this particular area. There's these two peaks that look identical, and so they keep thinking, if I just go over this next hill, I will be at the destination. And then they go over the hill and it's not the destination. And then they think, if I just go over this next hill. And so it's very well known for hunters getting lost in this region. But she tells this story, and her friend who's telling her this story says, children are good at being lost. Meaning they are much easier to find than adults. Because the key to survival is knowing you are lost. Children don't stray far off of the path. And when they do, they find a place to shelter and wait. Because why? They know they need help. It's not a surprise to them. All of a sudden, there's no adults around them, and they don't know what's happening. And so they just hunker down and wait for somebody to come find them. The songwriter says, "Deliver me, O Lord. Deliver me." They know they need help. They need to be delivered from people who tell lies. They need to be delivered from deception, where people are trying to convince others that this is really good when actually it's really bad and harmful for themselves and others. They need to be delivered from people whose first answer to conflict is war and violence. So in their distress, the songwriter cries out, "Woe is me." Has anybody said that lately? It's a strange phrase. Woe is me, right? Or another way to say it might be, deep sadness and severe pain are always with me. To demonstrate this, the songwriter says, "I am an alien or a stranger in Meshech. I must live among the tents of Kedar." Now, Meshech is located in southern Russia, about as far away from Jerusalem as someone at their time could imagine. And the region of Kedar bordered Israel. It was closer, but it was known for Bedouin tribes that were hostile and violent. Nomadic tribes that moved from place to place, like tribes that we know in East Africa or tribes that were here before us, indigenous tribes. But these particular tribes were known to be violent and hostile. So the songwriter obviously can't live in both Meshech and the tents of Kedar, right? He's painting a picture, saying, I live my life, I exist, I dwell far away from the city of peace, and I am surrounded by hostility and violence. I have a Somali friend who I ran into at the Walmart this week, and every time he sees me, he reminds me that he lived in Malta, just as our family lived in Malta at one time. And it's a small island in the middle of the Mediterranean. Now, our family arrived in Malta on an airplane, but he arrived in Malta when he was trying to cross the Mediterranean Sea, trying to get to mainland Europe, to Italy. But then something happened with the boat. They were rescued and they were in Malta. And he was in a rubber boat with others who were fleeing their homeland for security. Warsan Shire is a Somali poet, and the opening lines of her poem, Home, say, "No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark." And later she says, "You have to understand that no one puts their children in a boat unless the water is safer than the land." That crossing that my friend that I met in Walmart this week made across the Mediterranean Sea takes thousands of lives every single year. He was desperate. He was desperate. When he arrived in Malta as a stranger, he found welcome from some Catholic Jesuit priests who helped him with his refugee claim and to register for classes at the community college. And when he spoke with me at Walmart, he just has this longing for Malta. Here's okay, but Malta was the place of peace, right? That was the place that he longs for. It was a very good place, he said. The songwriter of this psalm was experiencing the distress that my friend likely experienced when he decided to get into a rubber boat to cross the water because it was safer than staying on the land. But the songwriter also experienced the goodness of God because they don't cry out only to express their pain. No, they cry out saying, so that the Lord may answer them. I heard a preacher point out that the term Lord in this chapter is actually the name Yahweh, the personal name of God that was revealed to Moses. So the songwriter is crying out to who they know to be the promise-making and promise-keeping God, creator of all. And just as my friend remembers Malta, the place of peace in his life, the songwriter has experienced God's deliverance before. Looking around themselves, they come to a place of knowing they are lost. This is the first step. We can get caught up in living our lives day after day after day, and in small ways and in big ways, we wander off of the path. We wander farther away from the kingdom of God as we just are trying to survive. We're just living. We're just getting by. And we sometimes find ourselves, we look around, and all of a sudden we're like, God, I need you to deliver me. I need you to deliver me from the people around me who are lying, from the people around me who are insisting on division and anger and fighting. And the truth is, sometimes that person is ourselves. We are the ones who are caught up in lies. Our minds are telling us lies about ourselves. We are being deceived, allowing ourselves to be deceived, to believe things that are not true about us, about our neighbors, about God, about creation. Now, the first step to survival is knowing you're lost. That's where it begins. This journey that people go on to reach Jerusalem in order to celebrate the Holy Feast together is both physical and spiritual. They are physically walking up a hill to Jerusalem. And they are also moving along a spiritual path. In the first 5 chapters, so it's 15 Psalms. The Psalms of Ascent is 15. So in the first 5 is them just discovering we're lost. And they start going and they start tripping right away. Because has anybody ever climbed a mountain? It's not easy, right? And then the next 5 chapters is like, okay, we're getting the hang of this. We're content. We can see God in the everyday rhythms of our work and in our life. And then the last 5 chapters are like, oh, we're getting close. We are preparing our hearts to enter into the temple. We are exploring and shouting in joy for the gift of being able to feast together in the city of peace. Now, there's a few thoughts I want us to reflect on as we consider this journey that is taken by the people of God. First, it's a journey that is taken more than once. Once the feast is over, they return to their homes, only to return to the city again for the next feast. Second, there are people who would not have had the chance to make the journey. They would have been very young, they would have been elderly, possibly have physical limitations or sicknesses and diseases. Third, it was a journey taken together, and it was filled with song. Now, in the first reflection, the journey to the city of peace is not a one-time journey. As we learned while studying Ephesians a few weeks ago, we are living in the time of the already and the not yet. The kingdom is here. Jesus has defeated the power of sin and death. He is seated at the right hand of God in the heavenly realm, meaning he has all authority in heaven and on earth, and we are in the heavenly realm with him. We also live in the earthly realm that still suffers under the power of sin and death until Jesus returns to make all things right. But we start from a position of being healed and reconciled, and together we, who are all different from one another, are bound together as one through the Spirit as we practice mutual self-giving love and service. And our unity, as we read about in Ephesians, is a direct challenge to the division that the powers of sin and darkness are wanting to sow and to keep happening in our world. So what we talked about last week, right, is that we put on together the armor of God and stand firm against the attacks of the enemy. It would be foolish of us to think that somehow we have it all figured out. As my friend Adam reminded me this morning, we're all just making it up. It would be crazy for us to think we have it all figured out, that we have completely arrived, that we can no longer be deceived. That would be a very unhelpful way to live. We stand firm, but then we stand some more. Or as Paul said it, therefore put on the full armor of God so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything, to stand. It's a process. It continues over and over again. Like the songwriter, we have experienced the deliverance of God, and we long to experience it again and again. Some of us have been on the journey before, and others are just starting. On the second reflection, as the people travel together, there are some who cannot physically join them. There are challenges that keep them from being able to participate. But we are in a different time than the time of the songwriter. In the time of the songwriter, the temple was the destination to feast together. Now we, the body of Christ, are the temple of God, and wherever 2 or more are gathered, he is with us. So we can take the feast to our neighbors. When Segi is meeting with her neighbors and you're sharing languages, learning languages together, and sharing your music and sharing coffee, you are bringing the feast to your neighbors, right? When we are in our workplaces and there's division that is being sown, and we work with others for peace, we are bringing the feast to others who may not otherwise experience it, who may not come into a structured place. we go to people where they are as Jesus did. And on the final reflection, this journey was taken together. At the beginning of the journey, here in Psalm 120, the songwriter expresses feelings of being lost or far away and alone or attacked on all sides. The step after acknowledging that we are lost is that we try hard? No. The step after acknowledging that we are lost is to be delivered by God, to be found by Jesus and the people who make up the body of Christ. And then together we go and we participate in taking this journey. But we were meant to journey together. And singing together and encouraging one another with the truth of who God is, who we are, and how we were created to live together along with the rest of creation. Music is close to my heart, right? As we all know this. When I was little, worship for me was a place of refuge. When I, like the songwriter, was in distress, I would go find a place to be lost. I would go find a place to hide and sing my heart out to God. And as I've grown, I have found that I feel most connected to God and to others when we are singing and making music together. Shared songs have always been a part of the journey that God's people take together. From the Psalms of Ascent to the instructions Paul gave to the house churches in Ephesus to be filled with the Spirit, speaking to one another with psalms, hymns, and songs of the Spirit. Now, when I was young, I would sing until I felt the presence of the Lord. Like I was insistent. I am not leaving this place until I know you are with me. And as I would finally get quiet, I would hear the reassuring voice of my Creator. I still experience that in private. But as I've grown, I have found even more joy in making music with others, because it requires that we together are attuned to what the Spirit of God is doing among us and attuned to one another. If I'm playing the guitar and Zeke is playing the djembe and I'm playing one rhythm and he starts playing another, we're all scattered and lost, right? If I'm quieting down and somebody else is over here praising, right? Like it gets confusing. Are we praising? Are we lamenting? What are we doing, right? We have to be attuned to what the Spirit of God is doing among us and how each of us is experiencing what God is doing. Music is one of the best ways to learn this sensitivity to God and to one another. And I know that sounds really beautiful, but there are more moments when it's awkward than when it's beautiful. Just like the journey up to the City of Peace was not easy, but they did it together. So to close, we are beginning this journey of ascents today. Many of us have been here before, have experienced the deliverance of God. Some of us are still waiting to experience the deliverance of God. But it is a journey that everyone can participate in, because Jesus has removed the barriers and has gone to those who were previously left behind. I want you to think about someone in your life who's suffering under deceit, lies, people around them who are in constant conflict. What would it look like to bring the feast to them and to do it together? We will not only meet on Sundays, but commit to carry this journey to others in our daily lives. And it's a journey that will connect us to our Creator and one another as the Spirit meets us in worship. So I'm looking forward to what God has for us in the coming weeks and where we're going and what He will remind us of. But I want to just take a moment of quiet, and the same question that we asked before communion, I want us to ask again. Where am I? Where am I? I'm going to give us just a few minutes of that, and then we're going to close with a song.